for the future. And if we are able to educate all our children, not just some of them, in mathematics, we are going to see huge changes in this world. So today what I thought I'd do is really focusing on closing the gap. Notice I'm not just saying bridging the gap. I would like to see us close the gap between those who have and those who do not have the opportunity to attend these types of programs. Now, this is a global urgency that I am talking about. First of all, in October 2017, that was just a little while ago, the UNESCO Global Education Monitoring Report came out with some very, very concerning results that they found. The first was that there are 264 million children without access to education. Now that's huge. Think about it. Now, why is this so important? Well, the reason why it's so important is because that's 1 million more than last year. So we're actually not getting any better as a whole global world. What's going on? Most of these kids are actually in refugee camps. And because they're in refugee camps, they don't have access to education. And what do you think is going to happen when they do get educated? Who's going to educate them? That's what people are concerned about. At the World Innovation Summit and Education in Qatar back in October, this was the main deal. They're very concerned. Global leaders are wondering what to do to help all these children. Now, there are many different parties must be held accountable so all children have equal access to good education. What I wanted to mention today is the fact that it's not just about people in education or people in government who should be looking after education. It should be everyone. So many different parties should be held accountable. And countries, I'm going to explain a little bit more about this, but countries must invest a lot more money is what they're saying. But I actually think that's just the beginning. It's not just about investing money, because we can invest in money and do the same thing over and over again, and we're not going to see improvements. In Pakistan, I know there is an urgency, and I know a lot of people here feel it. They know it. There's a lot of talk. And today I hope that perhaps we can think of some ways for action forward, not just for talk. In Pakistan, on October 18th, 2017, in New York Times, this was what was written, less than half of the third graders in Pakistan can read a sentence in Urdu or local languages. 31% can write a sentence using the word school in Urdu, and 11% can do it in English. Since 2010, Pakistan has more than doubled what it budgets for education, and Pakistan has the second largest population of out-of-school children in the world. But the proportion of 5 to 9-year-olds in school is the same as it was in 2010. 57%, with teachers chronically absent from school at a rate of 20 to 30%, and most of the education budget going into their salaries. Doubling the budget was never the solution to Pakistan's education crisis. That's by one person. Okay, now, I just want to state this. In the United States, the No Child Left Behind spent billions of dollars to address education. And again, they did not see an increase, an improvement in their education. So I guess I'm here today to say we need to think differently. Yes, money is important because we have to hire good people. We have to ensure the facilities are important. But how do we think differently? So there is a global urgency. It is not just about who has access, but what children are learning in school. So we can have them going to school, but what are they learning in school? And these are one of the results that was showing. I'm not going to go through them all, but this came right from the report. And I must admit, this is the same that I see in North America. There is a global issue in education, okay, especially math education. So let's look at the educational realm now and in the future. So what I would like to do actually is just start by saying that we've got to have some new ideas and new players. And how do we do that? Well, number one, the first thing that I have noticed is that belief in the kids. When I go into the classrooms and I look around and I will see what's being done with the kids, and very little. This is throughout the world. I will tell people that this is what our students in Spirit of Math are doing, and people say, no, I don't believe you. Or even teachers will say, no, they can't do this. And I'll say, oh, okay, well, I'll show you. And sure enough, kids, and it's not just one type of kid. Any child who is motivated enough can do a huge amount. We have to start believing that people, not just governments, and us in education have all the solutions. That even the kids have the solutions. So belief is number one. Imagination. Now, this is something that is becoming more and more important. In fact, they're saying that imagination is going to be more important than IQ as we go forward in education. Because in order to understand and to think further ahead, people have to learn how to be imaginative and good imagination. This is actually a skill. There is a producer from the Cirque du Soleil. And the Cirque du Soleil, does anyone know what Cirque du Soleil is? No? Okay, Cirque du Soleil. Cirque du Soleil was something that came from Canada, and it is a circus. But instead of doing regular circus type things, changed the whole way that circuses have been done with people doing acrobatics. If you ever have a chance to see Cirque du Soleil, it's incredible what they're doing. He changed the paradigm of circus. And this is what he had to say, is that imagination, he feels there's a war on imagination. He feels that people are being taught in such a way that they're being taught not to imagine, just to be told what to do, wait to be told what to do, and then do what they're told, rather than trying to figure out what to do in the future. Imagination is going to be critical for the future, for our kids, for anybody, and anybody can be taught how to do that. In Spirit of Math, we spend a lot of time challenging our kids to think out of the box and to think divergently. In this question, this is a simple one that everyone here can answer, but yet very few people. Everyone has the skills to answer this question, but are you able to answer this yourself? This is the question. 2 bugs running back and forth on a branch at constant speeds without stopping. They start at opposite ends of the branch at the same time and meet for the first time 40 centimeters from the end of one branch. They continue to the ends, return, and meet for the second time 20 centimeters from the other end of the branch. How long is the branch? This is a beautiful question, no algebra. So don't go to your algebra. Kids have to answer this without algebra. So think about it for a bit. I'm not going to ask you to answer it right now, but afterwards, if you like to talk about it some more, you can. The answer is possible, but they have to talk about it. They have to use their imaginations, and they have to think divergently. That's the type of questions we need to be asking our kids. We also have to teach our teachers how to think this way. Technology, we all know technology is there. But what does it mean to be technologically literate? What does that mean? Does it mean that we just use technology to do all our thinking? What people are saying now is that technology is one part. We have to learn more about what humanity is. So how do we use technology, and where does the humans come in? So being literate in technology is critical. Does the computer program the child, or the child program the computer? Fake news, fake facts is our next one. In Spirit of Math, actually, before I get to the fake news, Spirit of Math, We use technology to help support the child's learning. We do have an online portion, but we also feel that technology should not be taking place of the thinking of a child. We have 4 elements in every single classroom. One is a drill element, which promotes fluency and automaticity of number facts. The second is problem solving. The third is our core element. And fourth is cooperative group work. Now, we're also looking at spirit of technology, and this is something that we're going to be starting next year so that we can integrate mathematics and technology together. Next is fake news, fake facts. Huge issue right now in the world. What do you believe? If you're using technology and you're using social media, we have to teach our kids how to think properly about what's out there and to determine what is the truth and what is not the truth. Again, a huge concern, but those are skills that have to be taught to kids. How do you determine whether something is correct or not? So, in order to do that, we need kids to think independently, to question things, and to think logically. How do you teach that logical thinking? Well, mathematics does it if you do it properly. This is not rote learning that we're talking about with Spirit of Math. We're talking about critical thinking. So how do you get kids to do critical thinking? Well, let's start with a grade 1 question. Actually, kindergarten now does this. There are 2 shapes below. One of them is not a square. What is the other? Most people will say the answer is a square. It's not a square. Okay, if one of them is not a square, it's the circle. Sorry, most people will say it's a circle. Okay, sorry about that. Most people say it's a circle. One of them is not a square. What is the other? It's a square. Okay, so this thinking, like I said, most people say it's a circle to begin with because they're not reading carefully about what's happening. So we want to start at very young ages to think about what is going on and what's being said in the words, not just what are the numbers. Because in order to work properly with numbers, you have to have the language as well. And you have to have the visuals. Language is often missed in mathematics, but it is a critical part of mathematics. So how do you get kids to think properly so they can think through the math? Now, another thing that we find often is quality versus quantity. So many people will just have their kids go into one tuition after another, learning the same thing over and over again. You don't need to do that if you've got good quality. And this is something that we wanted to say is that just in an hour and a half, once a week, we are taking our students from the top third of the class to the top of the nation consistently. And people are saying, what are you doing? How are you able to achieve this? Well, it's the way that we want them to think. It's the fact that we actually do demand a lot and we do believe in the kids. They can do a lot. Our teachers are phenomenal as well. So the next thing I wanted to really talk about was a future trend also. In business, it's not about competitive advantage anymore. Now with technology here, it's about innovation. How do you get kids to innovate? Innovation requires imagination. It requires logical thinking. Companies, in order to compete, it's too slow to compete. You have to innovate because that's what it is. So the coexistence I mentioned before with refugee kids, we do need to remember that we are here all together, and it's not just even one country over another country, one part of the society and another part of the society. This is why it was so important to announce these bursaries, because we feel that it's time to close that gap. And how do we do this? And it's not just talking about it, it's taking action to do it. So we are, in Spirit of Math, creating problem solvers of today so that we can have strong leaders of tomorrow. This is what's important to us. It's important to the world. There are going to be problems that are much bigger than we can ever imagine that's ever happened before in this world. And it's not that we think we can just answer with technology. It's not going to happen. The issues with the refugees aren't just because of political refugees, climate refugees. It's a serious issues happening out there. So we've got to get together and have the kids ready for their futures. 65% of the jobs that are going to be around in 10 years from now have not even been thought of right now. That's huge. Think about it. How do you prepare and how do you educate for that? You can't just say it's to this for this job anymore. It's about the thinking and the basic skills. And that's what's going to be critical. So, creating leaders for tomorrow, where are they coming from? Are we creating them? What defines a leader? IQ versus EQ, emotional quotient, which is empathy, versus imagination. What defines a problem solver? We need people who understand others, who are articulate, and understand how we fit into the bigger picture. Our leaders of the future must be role models. They must know how to think divergently, to be visionaries, to value humanity and place their own egos on the side. They must also have the courage and integrity to speak the truth, the compassion to hear the voice of those who suffer, and the wisdom to provide solutions. Education is the future of the world. It is a primary responsibility of education to prepare children to solve problems they themselves never anticipated. We coexist in this world. Our greatest problems will only be solved once we understand the genius in others, no matter our background, color, or geographic area that we live in. The future is in our children. I'm going to go back now to closing the gap. It is going to be about us believing in these children, teaching them how to imagine. New players and new ideas are needed. Spirit of Math has disrupted education in North America in a good way. We're not trying to damage anything. We're actually doing a lot of good. And what we want to do is carry this forward so that people are thinking independently and we can get kids to do that. We're also looking for people who would like to work with us and help us grow this further and help us get to teachers too in particular so that we can help train too and see these new ways of thinking. We now have some panelists who Kirsty is going to introduce, and then we're going to have a couple of discussions about education as a whole. And we're going to have the, we can have the stools brought up as well, please.
Yeah, that's fine. You can
okay. All right. Okay.
Hello? Oh. All right, so there's actually, so for the panel discussion today, there are a couple of people that I would like to introduce, and I guess some giveaways are going to be handed out right now as well. So the first person, again, I would like to bring back onto stage is Ms. Bushra Ansari. The next person who will be coming onto stage is Major General Obaid Zakaria. He is currently the Vice Chancellor at Lahore Garrison University and has been there since 2015. He previously he before becoming a vice chancellor, he had an illustrious career that spans over many years of leadership appointments at key industrial, defense, and academic institutions. Secondly, I would like to invite Shahryar Salamat. He has been the executive director of Salamat School System since 2006. He is a graduate of Teachers College from Columbia University, where he attained a master's in education, specializing in school leadership. He also has a bachelor's from Dartmouth College and received his schooling from Aitchison College. And thirdly, I would like to invite up Mia Imran Masood. He is currently the Vice Chancellor of University of South Asia. And prior to being a Vice Chancellor, he was the Minister of Education for Punjab and also held many other government positions focusing on education, health, human rights, women empowerment, environment, culture, and heritage.
Okay, we're now going to, we've invited these panelists because we want you to know that we're not just thinking about Spirit of Math. We are sincerely interested in education as a whole, and we felt it important that we have some good discussion about what's happening in education. So today, thank you very much, all of you, for coming. What we're going to do is I have a couple of questions that they have prepared, and and what we're going to do is just discuss, basically, it is about closing the gap and some of the things that will be needed in order to close the gap. The first thing I would like to ask each of you is, what do you think are the most critical skills that students from anywhere can have that will help them in their future? Do you want to pass that?
I think the most important thing, I can talk about this part of world we live in. We need to give them confidence to ask questions. In our education system, kids hardly get this opportunity to ask questions to their teachers. So that's the first thing, very important thing for the kid. And then I could see the video clips, and the boy was speaking so high and he was so confident. It was so amazing to see him because he got the power to talk. He had this opportunity to talk and express his feelings about what he's getting educated by. But in Pakistan mostly, I mean, I'm talking here, the first thing is to give your child the confidence to talk about, to ask questions, whatever he has in mind. And then this, I think I would also want to know a few things about this spirit of math. That how did you think about coming here to Pakistan to take this initiative, and why?
Okay, I can answer that, and then we'll continue. Okay. Why don't we continue first, and then I can answer that. Why don't we? Yes.
Thank you very much for inviting one. I believe before I answer what type of skills we require, actually we have to see what is the underlying factors which would actually dictate tomorrow. Because we are preparing children for tomorrow, so therefore we have to see what are the underlying factors. First of all, there has been a drastic change, primarily because of the technology. But the primary change, I would say, is that instead of teaching now, it has become learning. And this is a drastic change. People have to understand that if you teach, you are dependent on somebody and you're just grabbing everything, what is being written on the board. Whereas in learning, actually now you have to use your mind, you have to be creative, you have to be innovative, you have to be little more thinking power has to come in, and then you have to decide. This is one change, big change. Second, as you just mentioned, and I 100% agree with you, that 65% of the future jobs are unknown at this time. So it's abstract. So if there is an abstract, you have to have your ideas. And those ideas should have no limits. You should be thinking out of the box all the time and finding solutions. So problem solving comes in. So that means 3 or 4 of the skills automatically come in. Problem solving, innovative, creative, communication. Now, you have to act globally because of the technological binding. You're becoming a small village, global village. So that means communication skills are very, very important. Then use of technology by itself. These are those tools, I would say they are all abstract. You give them these, and then it is the imagination and ingenuity of a user who will actually then find out a solution for himself. This is, I mean, the second major change. And I think the third major change, which is going to dictate of tomorrow, is that there would be more emphasis on learning process in such a manner that they would not like obedient servants. They would like people who can question, and they can find solutions on their own in a capacity of leadership. So I think these three, and then the skills, as I just mentioned, there can be many more, I can talk about that, but 7 or 8 I've just got out of these 3 basic changes. So if you keep these 3 basic changes in mind, I think there are so many skills we can actually put in. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Shariar, do you? Thank you. Go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Yeah, so my take on the question of what skills students need to be successful in today's world and in the world of tomorrow, they're sort of in line with the 21st century skills, which a lot of schools are already preaching. Just to elaborate on my own thought processes, is that the world of tomorrow is going to be driven by data. And a lot of scholars and thinkers have spoken about this, that the country that is going to be the most prosperous is the one that has the best control over the data that is available to them. And so it's really entering an information age where everything is digitized. Our online presence is digitized. There's so much information trails that we leave about ourselves in the cyber world that really it's about how humans then process this data. I see a lot of different people over here which span a lot of different generations. I see some who have recently, some students perhaps, or fresh graduates, some old timers who have been through very traditional information about, where the old philosophy is that knowledge is power, that whoever has more access to information is who is in control. But I think the way the world has changed now, thanks to the internet, is that information is available to everyone. I mean, just on your smartphones, everybody is carrying a very powerful computer in their pockets, and they can access through the World Wide Web. The whole world's encyclopedia of a wealth of information is on their fingertips. It's about how they access the information, how they process that information, and how they produce something of worth from that information. So what in the terms of 21st century skills, it's about critical thinking, is how you can process this information and come up with solutions for yourself and for your communities in the world around you, and how you're going to prosper in your field of study. So critical thinking is of utmost importance, in my opinion, and obviously it's in the realm of computer science as well. Communication, collaboration, all of those things come with it, yeah.
Understanding numbers and how to look at what's happening now, and being able to translate that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Sorry, go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, I totally agree with you, Kim, that students have to be very skillful, but the major issue is about the access of the students. In Pakistan, we have about 2.5 million students who are out of schools. That's the basic problem that we are facing. Now, when you have these boys and girls in the schools, then you need to retain them. Retention is another issue. So when we come to the skills, we need to give them proper education to be more skillful. A boy or a girl has to be, he has to be very smart. He should know how to communicate, how to ask questions. And when we are looking about school, middle school, you go to a college, to a university, so you need to learn the proper education through getting knowledge and information. We give them the ready-made curricula, the books, and then they do the rote learning. But I am more worried about giving them the right kind of information and knowledge. So attaining knowledge is very, very important. I don't know whether the boys or girls, do they get any knowledge through these textbooks that we provide them in the government schools, especially. Private schools are good. They can introduce any curricula, any syllabus, which is very successful throughout the world. But when it comes to the government schools, so we need to give them also proper sort of, curricula and books where they can learn, be more skillful. And when they are out of school, even then they need to learn. So how are you going to give them those tools, that enabling environment where they can learn any additional knowledge? How would they attain that? Through libraries or through a laptop or maybe through internet? But then there are many children who do not have these facilities. So in Pakistan, when I would talk about skills of a student, I would think about the environment, the culture, the issues that these young children face coming from the poor, the families. People do not have money to go to these schools. They do not have money to have an internet connection. They don't have any electricity in their houses. So when you collect and gather all these things and talk about skills, so I think we need to first do the preliminaries and the basics to make our boy and a girl more skillful. That is going to be the solution.
Thank you. Okay, yes. Yeah. Say your background too.
So I am working with Spirit of Math, as you all know, but I actually have a background that is not necessarily in education. So I have my bachelor's in photography, and I did my master's of design in digital futures technology. So I focused on prototyping and coding for design. So this is something that was a very new program when I first started as well. And it has already changed quite a bit since I have left, which was only about 2 years ago. And so in terms of skills for future, I feel that the biggest skill that the students need to learn for the future is the skill of how to figure out on their own what the skill is needed. So in order to understand and figure it out for themselves, instead of being told what the skill is and going to certain places just to learn them, but being able to understand themselves, what do they need to learn for the future, and how can I get that myself, and also understanding that there might be failure. And it's okay to fail. What do I do in order to, when that happens?
Okay, so skills of the future for the kids. A lot of people are talking about that. Now I'm going to give a challenge to everybody here. And that challenge is to think about 3 words that would define, or 1, 2, or 3. What are those 3 words that would define the skills needed for teachers? How are teachers to get kids to take risk, to have that confidence, to take the risk which was talked about, to have that creativity, to be able to read the data and understand the data, and even be able to collect the data and create it and know what's important data to gather. And again, the skills to teach the kids, just if they haven't been taught it themselves, how are we going to do that as well? So 3 words that you think are going to be critical when it comes to teachers. So you can think for a second about 3 words. I know this is a challenge. What are the 3 words? While you're thinking of that, I'm going to explain a little bit about Spirit of Math and why we're in Pakistan. Why Pakistan was the question. It was actually, we were here for a wedding. And when we were here for the wedding, we met a lot of people, and people questioned us about Spirit of Math. And the more we got to know about Pakistan, the more we realized how progressively forward Pakistan is thinking in education. And they also understand what we're doing, and they value it. A lot of people don't really understand, why would you just look at the high-performing students? Our materials for the schools and our teacher training is for any student, but our after-school program is for high-performing students. And really the reason is because we want to show people that excellence can be achieved, and how do you achieve that? I also firmly believe that we often look down at those problems that we have in society, whereas why won't we take those kids who are really highly motivated, pull them up, you create a bit of a vacuum underneath, and when you create that vacuum, other people see, oh, this is possible, and then they start to believe what is possible and realize that more can happen. And when you get that happening, then you've got the genius released in kids. So when we came to Pakistan, people said, yeah, I get that. I understand that, and we want to work with you with this. So we ended up meeting a lot of very, very strong people in education, and basically in life, I don't know about you, but I find that oftentimes where you think you're going in one way, all of a sudden the doors open somewhere else. And this is what happened here in Pakistan. And we thought we would run with it. And we are really happy we have. So that's to answer your question. Now your 3 words.
Yeah, I was actually involved so much in your conversation. I forgot to remember those 3 words. I had another question for you, but yeah, first your demand for 3 words. 3 words or 3 numbers?
3 words.
Okay.
Teachers training. Training is going to be very, very important for teachers. The teacher has to be more knowledgeful and how to get knowledge. What are going to be the techniques, how to teach a student, the classroom behavior, the pedagogy. And so I think that the teacher has to be current with the current knowledge, with the research, with the advancement, new books coming in, new books going out, and new courses, new ways. So I think teachers training is very vital. And when we are talking about quality and results, so the teacher has to be excellent. My major issue when I was a minister was the teachers training issue. And we had a huge number of teachers working in this department. More than 600,000 people would work in education department, and half of them were the teachers. So my basic and my major challenge was the teachers training program. There was hardly any teachers training in the government sector. So I strongly believed that the teachers have to be trained. And if you have a confident teacher, well-versed and trained, only then you can have the classroom impact and effect on the child.
I think the most important and the most required attitude is from the teacher. She should be kind. Her communication skills should be friendly, and then educated. These are the three things she can do for the kid.
You want the kids to trust.
Yes.
Actually, I would say all encompassing is one word, that is she or he should be adaptable to change, because that's the most difficult part, not only for herself or himself, but also for the students. One is that. Second is she should be very collaborative. She should be able to tell that it's not going to be a single man's show in future. It has to be a teamwork. So I think that, and above all, there should be entrepreneurs, innovative, new ideas coming in. So I think these 3 words: entrepreneurship, adaptability, and collaboration.
My 3, the first 3 words, the first in line would be professional will. I think it's very important for teachers when they apply for a teaching position to have utmost belief that this is what they want to do professionally, and to have a lot of conviction that this is what their career paths are going to be, what will define them as human beings. And I see oftentimes teachers apply as the path of least resistance sort of a job where they're not fully vested into their careers. So that's number 1. Number 2 would be, what was the idea that I had? So the one is cognition, is understanding human cognition. So it's one of the very basic things that they teach you as when you train to become a certified teacher is how humans learn. And I think that's something they need to put their minds to understand that the main task of making something out of their class or their pupils, they need to have a very strong scientific knowledge of how the human mind works. So that's the 2 things, and the third thing is skipping my mind right now. But I'll come to you after, Kirsty. I'll
being a owner of a big school, third thing I would suggest you for taking less salaries, not very highly paid. But there's another question I want to raise. Do you select kids from the higher schools, I mean high quality schools, or from the government schools, the lower part? How do you select the kids for this bursary?
For the bursary, what, yeah, great, thanks. There is good. Okay, the bursaries, very good question, have been selected. We've gone to principals of the different schools, and it can be any school, and we've asked them to, they know the students, and they know what the true ability levels are of the children in terms of their capabilities, and also financially what they are.
Underprivileged kids.
Yes, so we've asked the principals of different schools to recommend these students, and then from there, we're going to be choosing those who want to take that commitment to this. It isn't just come in and have some fun. There is a lot of fun, as you saw, but it's very serious, and it takes a commitment from the child and from the parents to say that they're going to put this effort in.
And for your information, they'll take all the responsibility for their traveling and everything. So
Yes.
this is another good thing.
Yes.
I just heard that. I mean, I didn't know you're announcing it on my behalf, but I just came to that you're paying for the travel also. Thank you so much.
Okay, welcome.
All right, so I'll just conclude my third point, which was, I thought of it, but just skipped my mind because of flashlights. It's control, really, or lack thereof. I think the classrooms of today and the future are really student-led classrooms. So if one thing teachers can do to make the classrooms more productive is to let go of trying to control your students all the time, to spoon-feed them information, is to let the students learn on their own and just be a facilitator for learning. So that was my third point.
Thank you.
So I'll just say my 3 points, and then I think we were going to open up for questions as well from anyone in the audience. So in terms of the teachers, what I would say are needed is first quality standards. They need to want to keep up the standards. Secondly is perseverance. So they need to actually be motivated to do that. And thirdly is understanding, not just for understanding the kids and what the students are asking and what they're trying to say, but also understanding themselves and understanding that, you know, it's okay if they make a mistake in front of the kids, and it's letting the kids know that that's also okay. So I would like to open it up now to the audience for any questions. So if you have any questions, we'll go around with a mic.
Put up your hand if you have a question. Okay, go ahead.
Before somebody raises their hands, I'd like to add something that one of the major reasons of a massive dropout in the government school was the corporal punishment. The teachers would beat the students. And so we had to, make a new law, but there's going to be no beating in the schools. So I think the teacher has to be a teacher by choice. She or he should not be compelled to become a teacher because they have to love their work. So I think these few things.
It's not only a job. It's something you need to be passionate about. So the teachers should have a very special kind of temperament to deal with kids and to handle them kind-heartedly, softly, friendly.
I think I would say that, as you mentioned, EQ is the right word, empathy and the emotional quotient. I think that should be one test given to all the teachers so that we can know whether they are coming by choice or by love or by love for the children. I think that's the point.
We have one question from the floor.
Any questions?
Yes, I think there's one.
Oh,
There's a few.
perfect. Okay.
Okay, so is there a mic that can be passed around, or should I walk?
Yeah.
Oh, there's one question here, and then we'll go to you after.
Off. It's on.
Hello. Hello. Hello.
Maybe you can switch mics.
Hello.
Ji, we can hear you.
Hani.
A bit louder.
As it is very encouraging and impressive to see the Langens come here and render their services in the field of education. But as you rightly mentioned about the other unprivileged segment of society, so as a father or as a former Nazim from my area, I would like my people from my city to benefit from the expertise that the spirit of math have to show or render. So would it be possible for you to be conducting tours once in a while only for the teachers' training? I would suggest Spirit of Math to be conducting their program in such a manner that we have some really fine trained teachers across Punjab, and with more progression coming in across Pakistan also. Thank you so much.
Part of what our initiative is we're using our campuses as a model so that people can understand what's happening in the class and they can see it. And we are increasing our teacher training programs. We do have some as online, some hybrid, and some just in person. So that's what we're looking at for the model to move forward. So thank you very much. The next question? Yes, thank you.
I'm Rabia Salman from the Dawn Media Group. I would like to pose a question. I mean, it's not just related to maths, it's related to education, as you all very worthy people and knowledgeable people are sitting on stage. I think the major problem as a mother, what I feel is the examination system that we have, where, you know, our children are just stuck in the A's and B's and the 90%, and, you know, whatever the syllabus is taught in school, they just have to learn it, memorize it. And I'm not just talking about the government schools, to some extent, private schools as well. So, you know, the lateral thinking, the questioning power to think beyond the classroom is just, you know, revolves around the grades. So that's what the parents do, that's what the teachers do. So at the end of the day, you get admissions on the basis of the grades that you have. And Spirit of Math also, you talk about the high achievers. So what about students who need that confidence? Maybe they are in the middle, or maybe, you know, kind of backbenchers. How do you encourage them that they can make a difference as well? Maybe they're not that brilliant, but they can be given an opportunity where they can do a little better and maybe excel also. And I think, talking from Dawn Media Group's platform, we have spelling bee competition that we've been doing for the last 13, 14 years now. And we have seen that, you know, if you give an opportunity to a student from, you know, not the main metropolis like Karachi, Lahore and Islamabad, from Sialkot, from, you know, the second tier or the third tier cities of Pakistan, if you give them the platform, you give them the confidence, they can beat any student from the A+ category schools like Lahore Grammar School, Karachi Grammar School, or even HSN. So I think our examination systems need to be revised on what basis you judge. And the Spirit of Math, I would request you guys also to give an opportunity to maybe the not so doing well students also. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
I would like to answer this question because it's a very pertinent one. And I think most of the people in Pakistan, they do ask this question. But I'm happy to let you know that things are moving in that direction, whereas they call it examination-less systems. But that's a disruptive technology which is coming in. And it's you might have heard about it. It's called MOOCs, which is massive online, open online courses. Now, in that, a person has to be self-paced. He can do his PhD in 10 years. And we have an example of Arifa, who died but Arifa Kareem. But children like those, they can now go on self-paced generation. Now, disruptive education, they call it, is at a very preliminary stage at this moment. But the way exponentially the technology is increasing, it's not very far off also. Already there is a race for almost best universities of the world and colleges of the world, which are jumping in to this MOOC concept. Even Harvard, Sheffield, and you name any university, they are coming in. And that would actually be the idea is that if I want to learn faster and I have the aptitude and the IQ to do that, I will not stop. They will give me a degree based on my performance, irrespective of your age. And examinations are foolproof online and that sort of a system. So I think that suits almost everybody. As regards the backbenchers, again, these MOOCs are going to be 24/7 available. Meaning by, if somebody is weak, he can go in for practice matches, 100 times a day. If somebody is good and he thinks only after 5 practices he can be as good, well, it suits both of them. A backbencher, if he has the will and he can work hard, well, he can even be better than the others. And last of all, I 100% agree with you. There are downtrodden areas, as we call them, from our standards. They're unmatchable children. I run a university which is a welfare university. I have 5,000 students. But let me tell you, they have outperformed even the best universities in Pakistan, although we are just 4 years old. But this year, they've come from very, very low class, medium and lower class children. And just recently, we are the only university in the world which is sending open competition of Bill Clinton Hurls Award. It's a business model award. We are the only university who has won 3 teams, which are now proceeding, 1 to Toronto, 2 to Melbourne. So 3 universities out of 3 teams from 1 university from a very lower tier society. I think that answers your question.
I'd like to just address some of what you said. One of the main concerns of parents in their lives is to ensure their children, that's their main purpose, is to ensure their children are successful in the future and can work on their own without others and work independently. So these tests are a concern for parents because right now our currency in education is the diplomas, the degrees, the credits that they can get. That's the way the world is working. What was mentioned here is a disruption that is happening right now in this world. In fact, they have something called nano degrees right now too, where people are taking people who have done something online, very focused, like driverless cars. They've learned how to create these driverless cars in 4 to 6, and those people are actually and they're getting paid more than people from MIT or Harvard. So there is a shift that is happening already, but boy, for parents, it's a hard one. I agree, because our system, or the system globally, has to have some assess children, and how do you assess them? And how do you know that they've gone to a certain level? This is actually one of our major concerns for Spirit of Math when people come to see Spirit of Math, because they will always say to us, well, does this teach to the curriculum? And we say, actually, no, it doesn't teach to the Canadian curriculum. It doesn't teach to the United States curriculum. It doesn't teach to the Chinese, the Indian, or the Pakistan curriculum. We have actually created this with students in the classroom over 35 years between my parents and myself, finding out what works and what is changing these kids in the way that they think about learning and think about thinking. And that's what's going to be important. And this is actually our biggest challenge, is getting the trust of parents to know that, yeah, actually, your children, when they go back into the classroom, and this is what parents will say, you haven't taken exactly what they've done in the classroom, but yet they're all of a sudden the top of almost every class now. It's because of the thinking. And that's what's going to be important. But to break away from what you're calling like the currency in education is a tough one. To address what Spirit of Math can do with the other students, we'd love to help out somehow. And that's part of the reason why we're here, is to get ideas. So thank you for raising that. I think, okay, one more question, and I think then, yes, thank you. Right at the back there, yes. Is there a mic? Right there. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Sorry, the parent. Sorry. Okay.
I was just thinking about our unprivileged children. Is there any future plan for them, please?
Well, that's what this is what I was just saying, is that we are really hoping to do something, and this is why, part of the reason why we have this discussion here right now. This is just the beginning of what Spirit of Math wants to do. We want to get more discussion happening and figure out how to get to those underprivileged children some more. Okay, so if people have ideas, we'd love.
There's a suggestion, maybe it's a request from a normal Pakistani citizen. Why can't the privileged schools like Salamat Academy, Grammar School, and a lot more, I mean, I still don't remember the names because I studied here, but now from 30 years I am away from Lahore. But why can't these schools keep a quota for 25 or 35 or maybe 50 poor kids to study in their schools? Why? Why can't? They should have this special quota for underprivileged kids who are studying, not going to school even, or maybe going to a very, very poor school. So you should have this idea, since you are here, maybe the only one to attack. So, I mean, this is an idea for everyone, always, raises in my mind. So we should think about this.
बुशरा बहुत ज़्यादा अटैक कर रही हैं इस पे.
और मुझे आता तो है नहीं, मैं तो मैं यही करने आई हूँ सिर्फ.
Well, I'll just, I mean, this is a lengthy topic of conversation, but I will just say that the government right now is working hard with the private sector and schools such as Beacon House. There's about 10,000 government schools which have been taken over by the private sector in Punjab alone. And so and there was a recent article in The Economist magazine as well that Pakistan is now serving as a role model for other poor countries as to how to fix the problem of education. And so that's a credit goes to our government right now for doing something to.
She said, really?
Well, I'm just saying from what The Economist magazine's perspective is that
we live here. We don't believe them. The Economist perspective.
I mean, this is an interesting debate to be had. It's a lengthy debate. Again, for example, some people would say it's the government's responsibility to provide education as per our constitution. And the private sector is supposed to be a very small segment which should be allowed to provide education, and the bulk of it should be provided by the. I think
one of you, maybe you're the young person to represent the whole
and I'll just come to our example in particular. Like, we give a lot of scholarships, a lot of need-based concessions. So a lot of that is already taking place, and we do have a lot of financial support to our parent body that we're giving right now. Thank you.
All right. I think there was one more question here. Yes.
Hi, I'm Dr. Nuzir. I just want to come on the stage for 5 minutes if possible, because I'm really passionate about sharing my experience with you people.
Okay, come on.
Come and take my place, please. I'm very uncomfortable on this chair.
Well, before she comes to the stage, I'd just like to, for the information of the audience, in 2002, poverty was a big issue in the education sector. So we had to announce free education for every child in the government sector. That was done for the first time in the history of Pakistan. We were talking about 12.8 million students. So we did not charge not even a single penny in the government schools. Well, private sector has its own issues because they have to make it sustainable. They need fees to run their systems. But I know for sure that Salamat system does offer scholarships. So is the Rosen School of Scholars also. So.
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much. I'm Dr. Nuzir, but stay-at-home mother. And I wasn't knowing that I'll be given a chance on the stage. Otherwise, I would have done two things for sure. I would have Googled to grab some really nice material to talk about and then impress you guys. And I would have gone to Salon also. But what I'm going to tell you now, it's like on a very genuine note. When I was told about Spirit of Maths, my sister-in-law told me about it. I wasn't excited at all because I just thought that it will be something very similar to other programs and workshops. But I'm so obliged to my sister-in-law to tell me about Spirit of Maths. By the way, I'm obliged to her for so many other things also. So when I joined it, along with my 2 daughters, 2 nieces, and 1 nephew, I found it absolutely amazing. I found it extremely valuable process of learning. I found it thoroughly enjoyable. And the 3 things they were talking about, I experienced creativity, I experienced unpredictability, and I experienced fun and excitement all together. And to all the parents out there who want to fall in love with the process of learning once again, or who want their kids to master the skills and concepts of maths, I want to tell you guys that this is the right place. It's a whole new dimension. It's a whole new approach. And it's so interesting and creative that your kids won't get bored, I assure you. And I wish them all the best. And I just hope and pray that they will keep up the good work, inshallah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I wasn't expecting this, so thank you. All right. Yeah, thank you very much. I think that brings us to the end of the panel. We'd like to thank you all for being part of this. And I guess I should let Kirsty go ahead. Oh,
okay. So there are some refreshments at the back, but before that, I would also like to say the answers to the questions that were on your table. So if any of you solved any of the questions, I'm going to quickly say what the answers were. So for number 1, and you can write this down and maybe try it at home later to see if you get the right answer. So for number 1, the correct answer is 66 seconds. For number 2, it's 10 rectangles. For number 3, it's 22,923 days. For number 4, it's 857,241. For number 5, it is 3.125 square root 3, what, centimeters squared? Sorry.
25 over 8 and times root 3.
Number 6 is 8 integers. Number 7 is 420 kilograms. Number 8 is July 11th. Number 9 is 4 students. And the last question is 252 cars. Did any put up your hand if you got a correct answer?
Even one.
Oh, there's a couple. All right. Okay, good.
Okay,
all right.
good.
So before the refreshments, we would just like to quickly thank the panelists. And Bushra, if you could come back on stage, please.
कैसी मौज में मेरा
We really appreciate all of this. Thank you very much. Nathan, can you stay up here for a second?
So hold on. So before the end of every class, we have something called a mental math. The students are not allowed to leave the class until they get the correct answer. And as a class, they have 3 tries, but only one try for each child, but 3 in total for the class. So Nathan is going to be giving the mental math, and you're not allowed to leave until you get the correct answer.
One person gets the correct answer.
One person. Oh, and the other rule is you need to put up your hand. If you shout out the answer, the question is dead. Okay.
And there's one more thing. You're not allowed to use your mobile phones. Okay. Or calculators.
Or write anything down.
Or write anything down. It's solved from here.
Yeah, they always do this. They never tell me ahead of time that I'm giving the mental math. So I should have predicted this. All right. 3 times 3 times 3 plus 3 divided by 3 plus 3, square that number, plus 1, divide by 10, add 3, and multiply by 3.
Yes.
Yeah, the answer is 60.
Nice. Well done. Yeah, right. So the refreshments have been served. If you could please, it's fine.
Yeah, so that was the end of a grade 5 class, by the way.
Thank you very much, everybody, and we wish you all the best. Hopefully we can have more discussion, and we would love to hear from you all too in terms of moving forward and action, not just talking, but let's take action. Thank you very much.
Any members of the press that have more questions, please come up here for us to address them.